Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to talk about why should home buyers be concerned about the roof. And to do that, I've got a friend here that's decided to join me. His name is Mark, and I'm going to let Mark introduce himself so that way you can find out why he's the expert on this kind of thing.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Hiryak. I'm a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker. Real estate is actually my second career. I was a professional engineer before that, so that gives me a pretty good technical background for understanding a lot of the systems that goes on with the house, including the roof.
Okay, so believe it or not, the roof is actually really important, and you would think that people would be concerned about the roof. You would think that people would be thinking about the roof, but I think you and I have talked before how people don't really seem to think about that a whole lot. Why do you think that is, that people just aren't thinking about the roof?
Well, I sure do. So when you say believe it or not, I believe that the roof is very important. Buyers tend to think, it's an emotional time for them, right? And we go out looking for houses and they're thinking, okay, this is the house that's going to be our forever home, or maybe this is the house that we put an offer in on. They tend to look at the things that sell a house, whereas a real estate agent with a technical background, I take a look at some of the things that, well, maybe they ought to consider before they put an offer in, and the roof is certainly one of them. Reason being, it's expensive. It's not difficult to repair. I mean, you're out there every day repairing roofs. We kind of know the process. There's not a lot of unknowns with the roof, but it's expensive. And so buyers want to make sure that they're getting a good value.
Yeah, one of the things that impresses me the most about you that no other roofer has done when I've met, or no other realtor has done when I've met somebody out at a house, is you actually get up on the roof with me so that you can see what it is that I'm talking about. First of all, why is it that you're not afraid to get up on the roof, and why do you get up on the roof with me?
So back in college, I used to roof. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I did it in summers to help pay for school. And so I have an understanding of what goes on, having done it myself decades ago, right? And a lot of that was commercial rather than residential. But I think it just helps me to be able to see for myself what you're talking about. So just last week, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we were looking at some skylights and some damaged shingles. And so when I can see it myself, then it helps me better explain to the other agent what's going on. And I think it gives me some leverage and my clients some leverage, because now I can talk from experience rather than saying, well, Tracy called me on the phone and he said that, the roof isn't bad. But having seen it myself, I know what that means.
Yeah, so you know that the roofer's not bluffing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so Mark, what are some roof-related issues that you know can be maybe stumbling blocks that you wish homeowners would ask about when they're going through the process of putting in an offer and stuff?
Two things: skylights,
yes,
and permits.
Yes.
And it's not something that I necessarily expect the buyers to know to ask, right? Because again, it's emotional, and they're looking at the landscape and will their couch fit here, or what does the kitchen look like? But I look at those things, and so whenever we're in a house with skylights, I'm always looking up to see from the inside whether or not you can detect any leaks, any stains. Is there any paint that may look a little bit different from the rest of the paint because somebody touched it up? And then permits.
Yeah, or the texture on the drywall.
Oh, yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of giveaways that you can kind of say, I wonder. And once you start saying, I wonder, then it's, okay, well, I need to do a little bit more research.
Oh, but skylights, they let so much light into this room. It's so pretty.
Yeah, except when they're clouded over, or they lost a seal, or when they're starting to leak in the corners.
Yeah. So permits. You were going to talk about permits.
Permits. And so permits is a huge thing, for me at least, again, because I want to make sure that something was done right. On roofs, though, it's a little bit different, because you might see maybe some unfinished basements where homeowners feel like they can, put in a bathroom and a couple of bedrooms downstairs. And I can almost tell within about the first 20 seconds walking into a basement whether or not I think it was a homeowner's handyman special or whether it was done professionally. But on a roof, there's not too many homeowners that
Yeah.
want to tackle a roof and don't get the permit. I think on a roof, and this might be a good thing for you maybe to jump in on, where we might see a lack of permits is after a major hailstorm, and we start to see some out-of-state roofers coming in, and maybe they're not licensed, and maybe they can't pull a permit. But I always look at a permit on a roof just to get an idea of, do we think we might have a problem here, or are we generally okay?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. There have been a few real estate transactions that we've gotten involved in as the roofer, and whenever it's a real estate transaction, I always go out to regional and try to pull up the permit information so I can see how old the roof is. And there have been a few where I've gone out there and found out that no permit was pulled. And sometimes the homeowner even has the paperwork, like the contract with the roofer. And sometimes it's a local roofer that's been here for a long time. And I have to tell the realtor, it's like, there's no permit pulled for this, which that then becomes kind of an awkward conversation to have with the homeowner. Because really to do things right at that point, you should call regional and pull a retroactive permit, which costs you 3 times as much, then have the county come out and inspect it. And then if there's problems, it's the homeowner then who has to deal with it. Oh, and that brings up another issue too, is you should, and you can tell sellers this, but you should never let a roofer convince you as the homeowner to buy the permit.
Oh, yeah.
Because that typically indicates that the roofer's not licensed. So we actually have a video called "Should I Pull My Own Permit?" We'll link to that right up here.
Okay.
All right, so Mark, you've done this hundreds, thousands of times, maybe going through these transactions. What should be the major concern that a buyer has about the roof?
I would say condition. Condition. We talk about location. That's kind of a simplistic view, but for the roof, it's really, am I getting good value for my money? Or am I going to have an issue 2 or 3 years from now? Now, Mother Nature can come in and she can throw a hailstorm at us or 100-mile-an-hour winds, and we see blowing shingles and missing shingles. But overall, just what is the condition of the roof and how much life expectancy would you as a professional expect? We can see some of that during the initial walkthrough with the buyers. There's 2 things I look at. I look at the driveway and I look at the roof. And then you can kind of make an adjustment. Okay, do I need to modify my offer, based on what I'm seeing? Because the inspection comes after you're already under contract, right?
Right.
And so I like to give my buyers a sense of, well, maybe we should look at this a little bit better.
Are there any particular things related to the condition of the roof that you would want to know about from a roofer that then you would take back to the buyer and say, hey, maybe we should, pass on this particular one if they're not going to do anything about the roof? You see what I'm saying? Is there anything that would cause you concern about moving ahead with a transaction if the owners aren't going to do anything about the condition of the roof?
I would say as an agent, I'm never scared of the roof, because while we talked about it's expensive, every home is going to require a new roof at some point or the other. Yeah. It's just a question of who's going to pay for it. It's also something we do every day. There's not a lot of unknowns about it.
Yeah, so with all these things in mind, have you ever seen in a real estate transaction the house value either go up or down because of the roof?
Rarely goes up.
Yes.
But conceivably, yes, you could see value go down. But again, we're generally after the point of a buyer and a seller having a meeting of the minds on the price. So the value of a house, when I explain it to my clients, it's what is the appraised value? What do we expect an appraiser to come in and say a reasonable market value is for this property? But that's prior to getting it under contract. Most issues with roofs come up after the inspection. So the value is already established.
Good point.
Now it's how are we gonna how are we going to tackle this repair or replacement? And
Yeah.
we've done a couple of each, I think, and ideally it's hail damage, and now we can have the insurance company step in and help fund the repair. But the value is generally established prior to understanding there's an issue with the roof.
That's actually really helpful information for me as a roofing contractor, because we get asked that question by homeowners. I'm gonna be selling my house. If I put on this type of roofing material, is that going to help the value of my house? Now I know the answer.
No, I would say no.
Okay.
I think more importantly than the type of roof repair, I mean, you could spend $40,000 for a roof, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that because you're not going to get $40,000 out the back end.
Yeah.
Put on a good, decent roof that's going to have a 20 or 25-year service life. And if it's brand new, you can advertise that,
Yeah.
and that becomes a benefit for the buyer. I don't think it moves the needle a whole lot because buyers expect the roof to be in serviceable condition
Oh, that's a good
to
point.
begin with.
Yeah, okay.
But it becomes a little bit more of a marketing thing when you can say, hey, the roof was just installed last July, right? It's less than a year old.
Okay, so all this talk about the value of the house, but what about if somebody puts an impact resistant, just asphalt shingle? Okay, I'm not talking about like a stone coated steel or something like that, because that's an expensive product. But if someone puts an impact resistant shingle on the roof, do you think that that can influence a buyer's decision?
I would say it might move the needle just a little bit again. And it's
But
more
not from a monetary standpoint, right? Are you talking about just whether it moves the needle on, yes, we'll buy this house, or no, we'll buy this house, or could it move the needle on the value?
Probably not on the value, more again on the desirability.
Okay.
I'm looking at house A and house B. House A has a new roof, it's impact resistant. Everything else being equal, maybe house A becomes the better value.
Yeah, well, and the reason for that is because they might get a pretty good discount on their insurance rates,
Yeah.
which is it's a good thing. If somebody says, well, this has got an impact resistant material on it, the potential buyer wants to make sure that there's proof of that, and they want to call their insurance company and find out, well, what is the discount going to be? Because like there's one insurance company, it's never the same percentage discount. This homeowner might get like a 3% discount. This homeowner might get a 25% discount. I don't know why. The other companies, it's all flat, right? 28% or 40% or whatever. So it's a good idea for a potential home buyer to call his insurance company and say, I'm looking at buying a house that's got an IR shingle on it. What will be my discount if I buy this house?
The other thing, when you're asking that question, my understanding is the insurance companies then expect you to take a lower.
You assume more you can. Some insurance companies, you might have to assume more liability.
Yeah, a higher premium or a higher deductible.
A higher deductible.
Yeah.
Or cosmetic exclusions. Yeah, that's a whole can of worms there.
Yeah.
So we've met at a few different houses, but I've never heard any of your stories. So what interesting stories do you have about the real estate transactions related to roofs? Anything fun? Quirky? Quirky?
Fun, no. Quirky, yes.
Interesting, we'll put it that way.
Interesting, yeah. So I listed this house. It was a relatively new house in Cordera. Cordera is an upscale neighborhood in Colorado Springs. Built by a respectable builder in town, not a lower
Right.
till. This is one of my favorite builders. House was 2 years old, so we listed it. We got it under contract. The buyer's agent and the buyer, they came in and they did the roof inspection, and they said, hey, there's something wonky about this roof. It's only 2 years old, but it's wearing prematurely. And I think I may have called you to come up to get a second
this sounds
opinion
familiar.
on the seller's side.
Yeah.
And you had come out and said, Mark, right, it's only 2 years old, but it's dropping so many granules
yeah.
in the gutters that it really is wearing. And so there was an instance where I was on that roof like 4 different times, because after we got your opinion, then we're thinking, well, okay, we shouldn't be doing this, right? So let's go to the builder. So the builder punts. They say, okay, it's outside our 1 year bumper to bumper warranty. But, you know, we contract the roof out anyway, so you should go to the roofing contractor who put that on there. So we got the roofing contractor out there, and the roofing contractor punts, and he goes, well, no, the installation was good. You know, we did everything right. It's the shingles, right? So we went back to the original shingle manufacturer, and they sent a tech rep out to take a look at it, and they actually removed a couple of shingles, brought a few replacements in so that they could take it to their lab and analyze it. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking, right? Because it's a 30-day transaction, and we're already, you know, past the decision point. And so on only a 2-year roof, we had some premature wear. And while it wasn't fun or exciting, it was kind of interesting. And in the end, it wasn't leaking, but it was something where the buyer said, you know what, I'm probably gonna have to replace this a lot sooner than I would expect to.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a credit that exchanged hands.
All right, we need a scary story. You actually climb on roofs, like most realtors won't.
Yeah.
So either from your realty days, climbing on roofs, or from your days when you were a roofer, do you have any scary stories?
So this is not scary, you know, like vampires and werewolves scary. This is a little bit more some of the stuff you see, you know, as a real estate agent. This happened to me twice. Once with a seller and once with a buyer. And this house was already in the market. Elderly lady upstairs, very nice, very sweet. But she had a guest downstairs that had a cat and didn't have a litter box. And you kind of descend the steps and you can tell, right? And then you turn the corner and now you're in the open and you can kind of see landmines all over the floor. And literally we were in there.
Why do people do that?
We were in there 30 seconds. You know, it's how long can you hold your breath? So we escape out. The market was pretty hot. And overall the house was great except for that one issue. And so they wound up putting an offer in on the house. We did not get it. But it was the second time in my career where I had to make some sort of comment about removing pet stuff. Yeah.
Stuff.
So anyway, those are some of the things you see.
Wow. Okay. All right. So Mark, thank you so much for coming
you're
out,
welcome. Yeah,
doing
my
this with
pleasure.
us. I sure appreciate it. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
So they can get to my website, www.markhiryak, all one word, markhiryak.com.
Spell that out.
MarkHiryak.
Okay.
My website or my phone number, 719-466-1407. Happy to help anybody, even if it's just to answer questions. You know, this is a lot of fun for us, right?
Yeah. Hey, I want to just take a quick second to acknowledge two companies that made this video possible. First is Beacon Building Products. They have graciously allowed me to use this fantastic showroom here to film this video. I really appreciate it. We've had a great relationship with Beacon as our material supplier. So thanks, Beacon, for letting us come and do this. Next is the shingle manufacturer CertainTeed. They actually provided a sponsorship for me so that we could hire a professional videographer to shoot this. If you know anything about my videos, you know that I usually just hold my camera out in selfie mode and walk through the woods. But having a professional videographer come and shoot this for me was a game changer. So thank you, CertainTeed. I really appreciate the fact that you partnered with us to make this possible. All right, hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. I think you're gonna really like this video next. Be sure to click on this and watch it. Until our next video, I'm Tracy Bookman, owner of Homestead Roofing.